Hey there, I'm Patty Dominguez, and I'd like to share with you the top 10 lessons I've learned over the past 10 years of being an entrepreneur. After leaving my corporate cushy job, venturing off into entrepreneurship, I can tell you without a shadow of a doubt, I have been in some really high highs and then some really low lows. And so, in the name of sharing and imparting the wisdom that comes from a place of knowing, this is the top 10 lessons that I've learned over these past 10 years. All right, lesson number one. One of the biggest lessons that got me from trading time for money thinking to entrepreneur thinking was a big moment in my first year in entrepreneurship, which was in 2013. I was at a conference event and I was very worried about not having a job. It had hit me that I was like, oh my God, I don't have my job. I don't have a paycheck every single 2 weeks. And I was very worried. And even though my husband and I had saved up money where we were building a cushion, I'd saved up almost a year of my income. I was still so worried. I had a tremendous amount of worry and fear and almost shame about having quit my job because it seemed so crazy that I did that. And so I was at this conference, and in the after hours is when you meet the best people because you're having conversations and connecting. A person that would later become an early mentor of mine, Kurt Molly, was introducing me, and he said, "Hey, Patty here just quit her job." And then I said, "Oh my God, I'm so worried. I don't know what I'm going to do about money because this and that." And now looking back, it seems so cringy for me to even articulate any of that stuff, knowing what I know now. But one of the most poignant moments was when he said to me, he's like, "What are you worried about? Entrepreneurs create no money." And he said it in such a way that it was just a given. It's an understood. And I thank him so much to this day for that one statement because it really shifted the belief that I had been an employee for so long that I didn't recognize that when you're an entrepreneur, you have the ability to create new money. It's really up to you. And that got me on my way. I was able to replace my multiple six-figure salary as a result of that. And it was really a significant moment for me. So for that, thank you, Kurt. And that is lesson number one. Lesson number two is that in my first year in business, I was also struggling to make ends meet. I actually wrote an email about that today, and I was sharing how when I first quit my job, I was in a space of like thinking, okay, what do I got to do? And I came from the hustle and grind mentality that I somehow believed that that was going to be the secret for my success. And so I put together my offers. I was getting out there. I was going to networking events, 1, 2 event, 3 event, meetups, and the whole thing. And I recognized that I was exhausted. And I had a lot of struggle initially in my early months of being an entrepreneur because I didn't understand to value my value, to really know my worth. And again, another early mentor, this is just a shout out for mentorship really, and for coaching. I mean, it's priceless. He said to me, he's like, you got to really value your value. You have to know your worth. And I went through a package or a proposal that I was putting together for a client of mine. And he said, with everything that you know and the knowledge that you've amassed over your corporate career, you can easily add a 0 to that proposal. And I said, what are you talking about? And he had me shift some things in the actual proposal so that it became an irresistible offer. And as a result of that, he's like, just submit it. I cannot even begin to tell you how scared I was to submit this because I was like, oh my God, this person's going to say no. There's just no way. And so I promised him, I said, okay, I'm going to put it out there. And so in that moment, I put it out there and the person, the prospect had said yes. And that just goes to show you that the value of good coaching is that a great coach can help see your blind spots and help shortcut those key moments that are going to be just groundbreaking in your business. So know your worth and value your value. Lesson number 3 is a really important quote that I read from James Clear. It's, you do not rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems. Which was really incredible hearing that and learning from that. It's from the book Atomic Habits. And one of the things that I did early on in my entrepreneur career is I thought I needed to do it all, and doing it all is just stupid. I'm going to be really honest with you. In hindsight, I wish I would have taken action sooner on some real key principles. And I was white knuckling in my business because I thought I could do it all, or I wasn't in a financial position early on to hire people. And so that is the worst thing you can do. I didn't have systems in my business. And so one of the early hires that I had was a bookkeeper. I mean, it was so logical. And yet I was struggling with doing that. I'm not an accountant, I'm a marketer. And so as a result of that, I really learned that systems, and I didn't necessarily hear the whole thing about outsourcing and systems from James Clear, but that quote really encapsulates the power of having systems. And to this day, I have a phenomenal team, and I am so grateful for them. And we are a well-functioning, well-oiled machine. Of course, things fall through the cracks, but it's because our systems are in place. And so painstakingly going through systems. And the question is, if you are doing something more than once, it could easily become something that becomes a standard operating procedure. So create a system, create systems in your business, and that will be a game changer. I wish I would have done that sooner. Lesson 4, if you have to change the fruits, you will have to change the roots. Thank you, T. Harv Eker. Man, that was a big one for me. If you want to change the visible, you have to change the invisible. For so long, I struggled and I thought that I could do my way through everything. And one of the key breakthrough moments was at a T. Harv Eker event. I went through Secrets of the Millionaire Mind because I had always been bogged down with these money issues that I had and these beliefs about money. And I really had no idea that they were deep-seated at the root level. I had so many misconceptions about money and wealth and what it meant to be successful. The first time I read that book, to me, that was a game changer. He said, if you want to change the fruits, in other words, the fruits of your labor, you got to change the roots first. And so that moment with that book got me on my journey to self-discovery and really recognizing that if I was going to make things happen, it was up to me, but I had to look deeper than just the surface. I had to work at the subconscious level, and that's been so rewarding. Lesson number 5. It is from my most favorite business philosopher, the late, great Jim Rohn. This list would not be complete without Jim Rohn. I cannot tell you how many times I listened to it. At the time, I had CDs that I would play in my car, and it was just, I love Jim Rohn big time. One of my favorites is, don't wish it was easier, wish you were better. Don't wish for less problems, wish for more skills. Don't wish for less challenge, wish for more wisdom. That in and of itself could be something that could be the entrepreneurial anthem. And I have failed big time in my business on more than one occasion. And one of the things that this quote teaches you is just radical responsibility, is that it isn't going to be easier. So if it was going to be, it was up to me. If I had problems, is because I had to overcome those problems. I had to ask better questions. I have to be more resourceful. When confronted with challenges, those challenges led to so much feedback. I don't see it as failure. I see it as feedback that it has granted me the gift of wisdom. I mean, this quote to me is so powerful because that's exactly what it is. Everything that is meant to be is up to me. You can apply it to yourself because it's just the truth. Lesson number 6, no, yes. It's either hell yeah or it's a no. I wish I would have been more diligent about following this because so many times in my career, in my entrepreneurial career, I said yes when I should have said no. And I negated my business intuition. And the times that I have negated my business intuition or questioned myself or created doubt where there was no doubt or let somebody persuade me, ultimately it led to not so great things. Your business intuition is your internal compass. I've talked about it on my podcast and in my emails and in my community, the importance of really recognizing it's either a hell yeah or it's a hell no, like really being very specific about that. And don't go against your business intuition is what this one comes down to. Lesson number 7 is from my mentor, Jim Rohn, who says, be the obvious authority. Stop doubting yourself. Stop thinking that you're not an expert. Stop playing small. It's a liar. All that fear is just intended to keep you safe. His call to action, always in his community, he says the world needs us. And that's so true is that if you have something to share, if you're inspired to create something as an entrepreneur, it's coming through you. And when you doubt yourself, when you negate yourself, imagine all the people that you're robbing. A very dear friend of mine that I actually met through my mentor's community was a brilliant, brilliant doctor. And he had so many wonderful ideas, but he was plagued with self-doubt and overthinking and playing small because he thought that it wasn't good enough. And it was all a liar. It's this imposter syndrome that creeps up and creates all this self-doubt. Well, during COVID, he passed away. And I mentioned to my mentor, I said, oh my gosh, what a loss. And then my mentor said, yeah, he really robbed us of his brilliance by being so stuck in his doubt. And that was so significant because I felt his loss when he transitioned, when he passed on. And I always remember that. I'm like, what a loss that he withheld his brilliance and took it for granted. And because of that self-doubt and everything else, he left without sharing his gifts and talents. So don't let that be you. Be the obvious authority. Get yourself out there. And the people who you are meant to connect with, you're meant to connect with because they'll resonate with your message. And that's a very important point to make. You're not for everybody. I'm not for everybody. And that's okay. But you want to be the obvious authority to the people that you are meant to impact and work with and resonate with. All right. Lesson number 8 from my beloved shaman. He says, a warrior never preoccupies himself with fear. The comfort zone will not stretch itself. So you have to be proactive about stretching it. Carl Jung once wrote that the difference between a good life and a bad life is how well you walk through the fire. Then you are the fire, transforming fear into fuel and fuel into courage. I wish I would have operated in this way sooner because for so long I had so much fear. And for me, the fear happened as a result of a childhood trauma that I had. Long story short, fear was really my common denominator in how I led through in so many different ways in my life. And it robbed me of time, but that was my choice. I was making those choices in the wrong way. The comfort zone will not stretch itself. So you have to be proactive about stretching it. And the only way to do it is just to step through the fear. The fear is a liar. So step through the fear, really understand that on the other side of that is just really good stuff. All right, lesson number 9. Most people consider life a battle, but it's not a battle. It's just a game. That is from my favorite personal development author, Florence Scovel Shinn. What a great lesson that she shares is that this whole thing, right? Everything that we're so worried about is just a game. Life is just a game. And when you see it in that way, it really puts things into perspective, right? Nobody's getting out alive. So why are we so hung up on fear and all these other things? And once I really recognized that, and I operate now from the sense of I intend and I manifest, I create and I get into action and I understand the power of the I am. So there's no really point in trying anything. It's just making the decisions, being committed, and above all else, being consistent with it, holding on to the vision of what you want to create, because life is not a battle. It's just a game and nobody's getting out alive anyway. So why not? And then lesson number 10, this is a favorite of mine, is the term of being unfuckwithable. And that's a really important point because when you realize your self-worth, when you do not seek validation, but you pursue self-love, when you take radical responsibility for where you are in life and the choices you've made and the outcomes and the consequences of those choices, and you aren't afraid to rattle a few cages, there's something super liberating about that. So I have found that the more authentic I am, the more real I am, the more unapologetic I am about being me, it just really adds to this unfuckwithable meter that has been really game-changing. So I encourage you to realize and recognize that you are worthy and you don't need to seek validation, but instead pursue self-love and taking radical responsibility above all else. And it's okay to rattle a few cages. You're not for everybody, but you are for those people that you are meant to connect with and serve in your entrepreneur career. So that is my top 10 lessons that I have learned over these past 10 years. I'm in it for the long haul. So I expect to have some other lessons as I'm going into my second decade of entrepreneurship, and I'm really thankful that you have stuck around and connected with me on this. Let me know what you thought about today's episode. Thank you so much for checking it out. Never, ever forget your message matters. All right, we'll see you next time.